And welcome to Ether Tale Radio Theater. I'm your host, Scott Paulson, and joining me tonight, the intoxicating Melanie Peters.
But not intoxicated.
Nope, intoxicating.
Hello.
The intoxicated comes later because we're right next to the wine store, aren't
Yay.
we? And we know the combination to get in. Yeah, we're coming to you from WSRadio.com, and we're located near that spectacular white pyramid structure here on Miramar Road.
Yeah.
And yes, quite near the wine store. They're not a corporate sponsor, but maybe we should work on that, Melody.
Maybe
Who
we
knows?
should.
Well, tonight there aren't any bells and whistles here. I didn't bring my harp nor my theremin. It's just an easy show tonight. We're talking about books and poems and events that are coming up that are of interest to us. And for this book section, wow, they announced the winners, if that's the right word, I feel they are winners, of the 2019 One Book, One San Diego Reading Club. And it was announced at that spectacular festival of books that the Union Tribune sponsors.
Oh, that they do down at Liberty
Station. Yeah, and I was there.
Yay.
So much excitement. So yes, at that book fair, the One Book, One San Diego selections were announced. And here they are. The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay was chosen as the adult reader book. And The Crossover by Kwame Alexander was the book chosen for young adults. That tends to be a graphic novel book, and this one, in a way, approaches that, but we'll talk about it. And the picture book entry for children was Dreamers by Yuyi Morales. And also, there needs to be a Spanish language book, and the Spanish language book chosen was Éramos unos niños by Patti Smith. It was intentionally translated into many, many languages, and it's a wonderful book. And so that's one of the Spanish readers of Spanish books that we have.
So when I saw that one, is that Patti Smith?
The rocker,
The rocker?
yes. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it fits in with some of the themes of the adult book that was chosen, and that's why. So each year, One Book, One San Diego features one book for adults, as I mentioned, one for young adults, and one for kids, and one for Spanish language readers. And the program received more than 400 nominations, and there was just a stellar lineup of award-winning titles for everyone to read through. And I'm on that committee that helps choose the book, and it's very exciting to do that work, to receive those nominations and then read those books.
Yeah, looking at those early nominations, it's like, how do you choose? There were so many.
Yes, so many excellent books. It's easy to get it down to much less than 400, though, because there are certain rules that some of the nominating peoples didn't necessarily notice. Like the author has to be alive.
Okay.
And the book has to come from a major publisher, a true publisher, not self-published. And there have to be at least a couple reviews in accepted and known, journals.
Legitimate
Yeah.
reviews, yeah.
And also, it'd be nice if, it needs to be available in paperback so that it's affordable.
Right.
So if it's a hot, brand new book that's just hardcover, we
Right.
can't necessarily choose it. And we really, really want the book to also be in Spanish. And when that just doesn't happen, we just make sure that we choose an additional Spanish language book.
Does it have to be at the library, or you don't need to worry?
Well, I think that's nice when it's available at libraries so people can check them out. But we just try to make sure that it's an affordable book too, so that
Right.
people could purchase. And the libraries do scamper quickly to make sure that they're copies.
That they have them.
Yeah. So the Great Believers is a novel about the terrors and tragedies of the AIDS epidemic and its repercussions, told through a story of friendship and redemption in the face of tragedy and loss. It's set in 1980s Chicago and contemporary Paris. It won the Stonewall Book Award and was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award as well, finalist for that. It's also been optioned by Amy Poehler for television.
Oh, wow.
So I assume a mini series. That would be great. And so I'm reading from the press release. The Great Believers is about communities of several kinds, one being the city as entity, as home, as safety net. That a city has chosen it to read, to discuss it, and to start conversations about San Diego's unique AIDS history, as opposed to the stories we hear about New York or San Francisco, or the story that's in that book told about Chicago. It's profoundly gratifying. And this is a quote from Mackay: "I'm honored and indebted and can't wait to be there," said Mackay. So, her book is set in Chicago, but there's so much excitement about the programming for this novel here in San Diego. And on September 19th, One Book, One San Diego will host a free event featuring a keynote by author Mackay at the Balboa Theater. The event will include a performance by the San Diego Gay Men's Chorus and an address by Terry Cunningham, who dedicated 30 years to combating the AIDS crisis here in San Diego. And there's an additional theme in The Great Believers of World War I loss and tragedy and losing a generation there as well. But we'll talk more about that shortly. So the other book chosen, the one for teenagers, The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. The book was the winner of the Newbery Medal and the Coretta Scott King Honor Award. It's a coming-of-age novel written in a mix of free verse and hip-hop poetry. It tells the story of two basketball-playing brothers and their family and is aimed at getting reluctant readers reading. And Kwame Alexander will visit San Diego to speak to students at Wilson Middle School on October 23rd. Oh, that would be fun to be there. And that book, certain editions of it have a very graphic novel feel where the typeface is manipulated, and it's just beautiful to look at and so rhythmic to see. It's really quite spectacular. When people look at that book, they get very excited. So I'm very excited about those two books. And then there's also that picture book. This year's winner of that, it was the winner of the Pura Belpre Illustrator Award, Dreamers by Yuyi Morales. And that's our picture book selection. And the author is a Caldecott Honor artist and a 6-time Pura Belpre winner. And she uses lyrical text and rich detailed illustrations to tell her own migration story. And on December 7th, Morales will give a kid-friendly presentation at the brand new San Ysidro Library. I'm going to try to go to that. I'm going to be away for much of the fall, but I'm going to swing back for that. And this other book, Éramos unos niños, the Spanish edition of Just Kids by Patti Smith. It was selected as a Spanish language companion to The Great Believers as it explores some of the same themes. And it will be read and discussed by readers from Oceanside to Ensenada and from the coast to Imperial Valley. And again, we chose that book because, unfortunately, the Great Believers is not yet available in Spanish. And that will change. So celebrating these choices, there are going to be more than 100 free discussions, film screenings, lectures, and workshops all around these 2019 selections held at public libraries and other partner locations throughout the fall through December. Wow. And you can find all those details at www.kpbs.org/onebook.
I'm really looking forward to reading the first one.
The Great Believers?
The Great Believers.
Yes.
Because if you're talking about, the history of AIDS outside of San Francisco and New York, and what a lot of people don't know is that San Diego really did have a role. Here at UC San Diego Health, one of the researchers, Douglas Richmond, was one of the first group to isolate what AIDS was. And in the Owen Clinic was established here in 1982, and it's one of the first freestanding AIDS clinics devoted solely to AIDS patients, and it's still going strong. And I think a lot of people
they barely knew what AIDS was when they founded that
exactly.
clinic.
And I think of course, yes, like you were saying, a lot of people when they think about it, they think about, of course, San Francisco or New York, and plays like Angels in America.
Yes,
but sadly, San Diego does have a piece of that history.
Yes, and it really felt like a whole generation of people we lost.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did lose.
And one more interesting connection with this AIDS connection in San Diego, Nikki de Saint-Phal, always had a great presence here in San Diego. She wrote one of the first AIDS education books, and it was originally written in French, and it was used as a textbook in schools in France.
Oh, wow.
And it's a beautiful book with beautiful illustrations and very sensible statements. And it was meant for the school children, but it was also meant for their parents, so
Right.
that there'd be less panic
Right.
about the situation. And I think I'll try to exhibit that book at the library. We do have at Geisel Library where I work, we have a couple cases with some information about the one book. We're one of the sponsors of the program, and I think just about every single library is involved with one book. You suggested to me that I read a poem.
Oh, yeah.
That one book is largely about the AIDS crisis, but there is an additional storyline about losing a whole generation of people in World War I. And there's a World War I poem that Melanie suggested I read this evening by Wilfred Owen. It's titled Dulce et Decorum Est. Bent double like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep, many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshod, all went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. Gas, gas! Quick, boys. An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time, but someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face like a devil sick of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cut of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. And and Melanie will translate that last Latin phrase,
Which is attributed to the Roman poet Horace, and it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country.
and that's exactly what this poem is not about.
Right, exactly.
That World War I aspect of this one book choice is something that will be discussed in some of these book discussions. And there was a centennial recently marked for World War I.
So in 2014, there was a lot of in Europe, especially. You probably saw pictures of the beautiful when they did the poppies spilling out of the Tower of London.
Yes.
And they had poppies because of Flanders Fields.
Mm-hmm.
There's another poem in Flanders Fields, and the poppies come after the war. So poppies have become a symbol of that war. And there was a book that was published that year, I believe, by Jacqueline Winspear, and I believe that her aim was to publish it for the centennial, called The Care and Management of Lies. And one of the things it deals with is how, this whole cohort of men, fathers and sons and brothers all together, went off to fight this war that they thought was going to last maybe 2 weeks.
Right. And they thought it was going to be the war to end all wars,
and the
too.
war to end all wars. And, of course, it turned into the horrible, horrible slog. And so many men were lost, not just a generation, but you had fathers and sons and brothers, and so they were
Just
all
whole
gone,
families.
just whole families. But it's actually, it sounds very grim, but it is actually a very beautiful book.
You should nominate it for one book next year.
I think I will. It's such a beautiful read, and it's a story that's told across. There's 3 storylines, and a lot of it's epistolary. They're letters back and forth, and part of the title, "The Care and Management of Lies," is sort of the letters that the wife sends to her husband to keep his morale up. What she's telling him is going on the farm is not what's really going on the farm. And
you have to read between the lines.
You have to read between the lines.
To really see the sorrow.
Exactly. I don't want to give too much of it away, but it really is a beautiful novel. And I think for me anyway, I learned about World War I in school and World War II in school, and it was just dates that you have to memorize. But when you read a book like that and you listen to a poem that like you just read, and you realize, oh my gosh, the war to end all wars, and then they were going to have to turn around and do it again in 25 years. I mean, it's quite horrifying.
I really would like to see an epistolary novel, a letter-driven, journal-driven novel, be chosen one year for one book, because then the programming could involve people writing letters. That'd be so cool.
That would be cool.
I mean, obviously for this year, the programming is going to be very colorful and vibrant and fantastic.
Yeah.
But one year, please. Let's see if we can.
All right.
You should nominate
I'm gonna
lots of
nominate it,
epistolary novels.
I'm going to nominate it, and you guys all go out and vote for it, because it's worth reading. It really is.
Excellent. And now, you also, you made me read a poem. Now I'm going to make you read a poem.
Okay.
And this one is seasonal orient, isn't it? Because the summer's almost over.
It is. Despite the weather that we're having in San Diego, fall is on the way, and I thought I would find a little palate cleanser from all of that ecstasy of fumbling. This one is called "When Summer's End is Nine" by the great Alfred Edward Housman. When summer's end is nine, and skies at evening cloud, I muse on change and fortune, and all the feats I vowed when I was young and proud. The weathercock at sunset would lose the slanted ray, and I would climb the beacon that looked to Wales away and saw the last of day. From hill and cloud and heaven the hues of evening died. Night welled through lane and hollow and hushed the countryside, but I had youth and pride. And I with earth and nightfall in converse high would stand, late, till the west was ashen and darkness hard at hand, and the eye lost the land. The year might age, and cloudy the lessening day might close, but air of other summers breathed from beyond the snows, and I had hope of those. They came and were and are not and come no more new, and all the years and seasons that ever can ensue must now be worse and few. So here's an end of roaming on eves when autumn nights the ear too fondly listens for summer's parting sighs, and then the heart replies.
Thank you for that beautiful and timely poem. And speaking of timely things, the carillon, the library chimes atop Guy's Library at UC San Diego, those chimes are celebrating their 30th anniversary.
Hooray!
I remember it like it was yesterday, September 20th, 1989. And the carillon chimes first rang out on campus at the insistence of ornery Joe Rubinger, who insisted we accept that as a gift from him. He was on campus a lot, helping to found an Institute for Continued Learning that is now called Osher Lifelong Learning. But Joe founded it, and as a learning program for retirees.
Okay.
And when he was on campus dealing with that, he noticed we didn't have any bells, no chimes, and he was saying, "Oh my God, you got to have school spirit. You got to have chimes." When I was at Cornell, we had chimes and we had school spirit, and you know that fell upon deaf ears for a while because UCSD really wasn't known as a school spirit kind of school at the time.
Not really.
But he insisted, and they found a supplier for the chimes, the Mass Row Carillon Company, which is in Escondido, California, and they ship and install all over the world. And it's not these big one-ton hanging bells; it's these long metal rods that are amplified. But these rods, it's actually musical wire that's imported from Germany, but the wire's so thick it looks like rods. And at the factory in Escondido, they receive these rods, this musical wire, and they file it down in special places so that each rod has a specific overtone series to sound truly like an old world carillon. In an old world carillon, each bell, it has a minor overtone, like the note C, there's an E flat hiding in there. And that's why when you hear a true carillon elsewhere, it has kind of a melancholy feel to it because it's in a minor mode, and it's sort of, well, not out of tune, but it's got all the minor overtones, and sometimes they clash with each other. But this Mass Row Carillon Company, they devised a way to make the carillon work better for our American ears. So they've got an entire set of major overtone chimes and an entire set of minor overtone chimes. And you hit a particular button so that if you're playing in the key of C, that C note, instead of having an E flat hiding in it, it'll have the E natural. So it sounds more in tune to our American ears.
Okay.
And it's really quite ingenious. Although when I have composers go up there, I'm in charge of that instrument. I'm the carillonneur there. When I have composers up there, and if they're European kids, the students, they want it to be minor. They want everything because they're used to that sound, and it sounds false to them. Whereas, of course, all the American kids, they want it to sound like more like a piano and bright and happy.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting.
Well, I remember when I was working in the library for a little while, and you would take requests. And I remember I made a request. I made a request, and then I kind of forgot about it. And I was wandering around Library Walk, and all of a sudden I stopped, and I went, oh my gosh, he's playing Radiohead on the carillon. It was like the best day.
Hooray. Yeah, the number one requested song in that carillon still is Stairway to Heaven.
Of course.
And that works great on the carillon. It's a song.
So do you do it with the minor tones then?
No, I don't. But what makes that song work is that there's very large intervals, large leaps. Like you really can't do Flight of the Bumblebee on that instrument because it's just all because that carillon, much like a real carillon, there's no such thing as a short note and there's no such thing as a quiet note. Everything's a loud, long note. Yeah. And listeners can be forgiving on either a slower song or a song with leaps because they can tell what they're supposed to be ignoring as you progress forward.
Exactly.
But we're very lucky to have that instrument, and very lucky that Joe wanted us to have it. I was named carillonneur on Joe's 100th birthday, and it was such a nice gesture because then he knew that it was going to be looked after and cared for. And I still do take song requests, especially because of this 30th anniversary. I've got a couple weeks, special weeks set aside where I'm going to play noontime song requests. The last week of September, last week or two of September, and then again the last week or so of November, doing requests. Did you have a question, Melanie?
Oh, I was going to say I was very excited to hear that the company's in Escondido.
Yes. Yeah, they install all over the world, and one of these years they're going to go out of business, but so far they're the best possible alternative to a true carillon. They have these blindfold listening tests. And people prefer that Mass Row carillon with their rods over a synthesized sound.
Oh, right.
They can just tell that it's off. They just know it's not quite. One of these days, they will know how to synthesize it, and it will be, and so then there won't be a need. But so far, they're going strong, and they're installing all over the world, and they're the best possible substitute for a several-ton,
bell
carillon, and like the one in Balboa Park, that's a Mass Row carillon these days.
Oh, okay.
And the one at San Diego State, that's a Mass Row carillon, and
the one at Balboa Park is lovely. I hear it 3 times a week when I'm running through the park.
Yes, and their carillonneur did come visit me on the roof of Geisel because when they hired her for the gig, they asked her to meet with me because they could see that I was having certain kind of programming that they were wanting to try to do, along the lines of song requests and, and
Right,
other things.
right,
And I
right.
was so delighted to meet her. So yeah, the Carolina's 30. I can't believe it. And I'll be taking song requests. You can just email them to me, spaulson@ucsd.edu. And Paulson is spelled son of Paul, because that indeed was my father's name. So spaulson@ucsd.edu, and I will play your song request. So excited that the Carolina's 30. And I mentioned I'm going to be going on a trip, and one of the places I'll be going is Italy, and I am going to visit the Leaning Tower of Pisa, because that's a bell tower. And I'm not sure if there are bells in it, but it was built as a bell tower, so I got to go there. And in fact, there are at least 2 or 3 other leaning towers nearby or in the country, so I'll try to visit those too. Maybe that'll be my theme. So, and what's other news going on? Oh, that's right. This very weekend, Sunday, September 15th, it's the 19th annual Toy Piano Festival.
Yay.
We already did the UC San Diego version at Geisel Library on John Cage's birthday, September 5th. But these days, we also do a follow-up at the big, beautiful downtown central San Diego Public Library in the tiny David Copley stage of the wonderful Neil Morgan Auditorium. I love that little stage. I love playing there. And it's such a handsome little auditorium.
Do people bring their toy pianos?
Well, I have enough. I bring extras, and I do. The audience is invited to participate in various ways in the show.
Right.
I have had people bring toy pianos and give them to me too, which I don't necessarily encourage, but I have kept them.
I don't need one anymore.
But that Toy Piano Festival, well, I guess it started 19 years ago, and it was all because one day at our music library, when we used to have a separate music library desk at Geisel Library, I couldn't find the little service bell. But I did have a little toy piano nearby because I had commissioned someone to write a toy piano piece. And, actually commissioned to write a piece for 2 toy pianos. And all of a sudden I realized I needed to find 2 toy pianos that were compatible, for it.
Right.
So anyway, I'd started collecting toy pianos to pick compatible ones. And it was lying around. And no bell was available. So I put out this little tiny blue toy piano with the sign on it that said, "Play on toy piano for service." Because, ring bell for service, nobody wants to ring the bell. Nobody wants. But everybody was willing to play on the toy piano.
So are you saying that your toy piano concert at the library just celebrated 16 years?
19.
Oh, 19.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, wait, I was at the inaugural one, but I wasn't. I was at the 3-year anniversary
Yes.
one.
So you already did the math in your head. How about that? Yeah, and I still have that little blue toy piano amongst the collection. You'll see it on September 15th if you go downtown. But it was so funny because people started coming to that desk just to play on the toy piano. They didn't even need any service. They came because they wanted to play toy piano, and they actually read about it. Diane Bell put it in her column, and people had read about it. And they came to visit us just because they wanted to see the little toy piano. And that's when I realized, we got to have a toy piano festival, because I knew we were doing that one piece on this chamber music series that I hosted there called the Short Attention Span Chamber Music Series, where we played nothing in its entirety, and short pieces. So we within a year or two, we did indeed start having a toy piano festival, and it was very popular and still is. And something did odd happen one year, though. We had commissioned some pieces for toy piano, and they were cataloged into the collection. And we also owned a lot of scores for toy piano because I asked if they could, purchase some. And I went to go to the stacks, the shelves, just to pull, those toy piano scores. And I was shocked to find that there wasn't a separate call number or separate heading for toy piano scores. It was just mixed in with all the other piano music, and which was alarming to me because I'm used to being able to go there and then just go to the right section and then have it be stuff that I need.
Just what you need.
And so I complained to the catalogers of the library. It's like, how come all the toy piano scores are mixed in with the regular piano scores? I wanted to grab them all. I don't have to sort through all this stuff. And they said, well, Scott, the Library of Congress doesn't recognize toy piano as an instrument, so we were just forced to catalog it as regular piano. And that's what people are doing all over the country. Even if it's the John Cage Suite for toy piano, it's the regular piano stuff. So, oh, can't you ask him?
Right.
Ask him to give us a separate call number.
You need an act of the Library of Congress.
Yes, an act of the Library of Congress. And I thought it wasn't such a big deal, but they kind of gasped and thought, okay, we'll ask. And they asked, and the answer was no. So then I threatened to go to the Library of Congress and perform on toy piano. And then suddenly the answer was yes. Well, that's part of my story. That's not really how it happened. But they did the second time around. They just said, okay, well, give us your definition of toy piano and we'll look at it. And if we're happy with it, then we will. And we gave them a definition of toy piano.
Uh-huh.
And they agreed to do a separate call number, which was M175T69 for that Library of Congress call number.
Is the T for toy?
Yes, you bet it is. And the M is for music, so that's nice.
Oh.
And we were so excited, so then we immediately set up a toy piano call number victory tour. And we traveled to libraries all over San Diego County. They all use the Dewey Decimal System, but that's okay. That's just a detail. We use Library of Congress, but that's just a detail. And so that was a great victory for us. And here we are, many years later.
Many years later.
And still celebrating. So I do hope to see you Sunday, September 15th, at 2:30 p.m. at the great big downtown San Diego Public Library in the Neil Morgan Auditorium. It's free, and parking is validated, and the guest that day will be Figmentum, which is a trio of toy piano people that have interesting academic backgrounds, and Ken Herman and Barbara Scheidker, who are a duo in this show, are playing. And I'm playing some premieres, one from Samara Rice, who's an alumna of UC San Diego, and one from Alex Siegel, who's an alumnus of UC San Diego. And also my favorite harp lady, Chiara Capobianco, will be there as well to help out.
So there's like a society, or there's a group of people who love toy pianos, and they get into toy pianos.
Somehow that seems to be the case. I notice on Facebook there is a toy piano performers section, and they did adopt me, and I'm grateful. And I didn't invent the idea of taking toy piano seriously. John Cage kind of invented that idea.
Yeah.
With his suite for toy piano, which actually it was written for regular piano or toy piano, but it's best known as a toy piano one. And George Crumb also did a piece where a chamber orchestra has a little toy piano in it. The piece "Ancient Voices of Children." There's a lady soprano and a boy soprano and a big grand piano, and a little tiny toy piano, and it even has a chart on where you put the players and the instruments on the stage.
I asked because I read a piece a couple of months ago, maybe it was a year ago. Time flies, but someone from a rock and roll band, an established rock and roll band, was being interviewed, and it turns out that he likes to play the recorder, and he's part of a recorder society.
Yes, there is one. Yeah,
so
good for him.
That same thing, we all had to play it in third grade.
Yes.
and
then there are those funny sort of little concerts on toy instruments that Jimmy Kimmel, not Jimmy Kimmel. They're all named Jimmy.
Jimmy Fallon.
That Jimmy Fallon does, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And all on toy instruments. Yes, those are fun.
Hey, I like that little xylophone.
Yes, me too. Oh, yes, and speaking of music and fun, something that I do at some of the events that we mentioned, for instance, when I was in the booth at San Diego Festival of Books, I was at the UC San Diego Bookstore allowed me to be in their booth, and I had an activity where I turned people's names into musical motifs. And that's something that I do at these toy piano festivals as well. I'll turn someone's name into a musical motif. And I brought with me my little melodica. Let me grab it.
Yay, the melodica.
Yes, it's been called worse, but here it is, a melodica.
Mouth piano?
Sometimes it's got a melodia horn, or it's a little toy piano that you blow into. Usually there's a little short peg of a mouthpiece you blow into, but I use the hose version because it's funnier.
It's so great.
This one is so pretty. It's made out of mother of toilet seat. Isn't it wonderful? So I'm going to turn Melanie's name into a musical motif using the letters of her name in various ways.
Yay.
This is a fun literacy thing. You know, in music, the notes are basically just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So how hard is that? But we have other things too, like we use Roman numerals to represent chords sometimes. Roman numeral 1 is a tonic chord. Roman numeral V5 is a dominant. So there are things you can do. And there's also, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Right.
And there's also half steps, do, di, re, mi, fa, fi, so, si, la, ti, do. And flats, do, ti, te, la, le. So, you know what I mean, Jelly Bean? So let's take Melanie's name. Well, M, can't do much with M, but it does kind of look like a trill symbol. So we'll keep that in mind. So that the first, for sure, letter we've got in Melanie's name is an E. So I'll draw it right here in that top space, E. Now, L, we don't have much for an L, but L-A is la. Do, ti, la,
Right.
mela.
Mela. Okay.
So that's an A. So let's draw an A, which is like the I'll draw it sort of lowish on the second space up. But besides the la, there is just that A there. And so because I'm reusing that A, I'm going to do it as a much higher A, an octave up. And because whenever I use a note twice in a row, I always do a little glissando up. So I'm going to draw a jiggity-jaggedy line from the lower A to the higher leg. Good,
Okay.
okay. And then we have the N, which is, can't really use it. But
No.
that kind of looks like a mordant symbol, like do-do-do.
Oh, okay.
So I could draw the next note. So, and that M is more like a trill, tra-la-la-la-la, which I know you know.
Right.
So I think I'll do the trill on that first E and a mordant on that top A. And so that takes care of those. So now we have an I, which is exciting. That's not usually a note, an A, B, C, D, F, G note, is it? But
No.
I is the tonic chord, C, E, G. Musicians use Roman numerals.
Okay.
So that means I'm going to put a C, E, G. I might change the order. I think I'll go E, C, G just for fun. So, okay. And then we end on E. We may as well glissando up to that E just for fun. Great. Okay, so now Melanie, I'm going
That
to play
looks
your
terrifying.
name. Oh, no, it'll be fine.
Okay.
So Melanie, I wonder what your name is going to sound like.
So
I have
do I.
found that these motifs often really represent the person almost in a sort of a palmistry kind of a way. Although maybe it's just worse. Maybe it's more of a phrenology kind of a way. I don't know.
Hey,
But
my
let's see what
dad
it
named
sounds
me
like.
after a singer, so I'm
The Melanie.
The
I've got a
Melanie.
brand new
Yes,
pair of roller
that's who
skates.
I'm
You've
named
got a brand new,
for.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. Here's your name. Here we go.
okay.
So I think that really does sum up your personality, Melanie.
I really like that.
You're somebody who is not afraid to go on a journey.
I'm not.
And take in the things around you and look and not make fast judgments, but just take it in, look at it, and save it up for thought later. And to me, that I can just see you on a journey, taking in all this information, coding it for yourself for later, not being too judgmental, just coding it and sorting away. And then eventually you do have an opinion, though, I happen to know.
Oh, I
just
think-
from the way it sounds and from the way you are.
Just a
let's hear-
couple.
let's hear your name one more time. So here's that. That's you, Melanie, on your journey of non-judgment until you decide, and then you're going to tell people how you feel about things.
Exactly how I
But it's not
feel.
judgmental.
No.
It's just how you feel about things.
That's exactly right. I like it had a little Phantom of the Opera moment in there. Doodaloo.
Oh, yes. It's that little mordant, that N.
So that's what that's called, a mordant?
To me,
Okay.
a true trill is a diggity, a little zigzaggy looking thing like your M. But a mordant is a shorter squiggle.
Okay.
And so the N makes that shorter squiggle for me. There are other things you can do, like sometimes when someone has an S in their name, I turn that into a turn. If you draw an S sideways above a note, instead of just being this note, it's... So that's fun. And there are other things too, like we can use an H, believe it or not, because the Germans think of H as being B natural. Go figure. But that's how Bach, was able to write his name because of that H in there. And I mentioned the syllables too, and so there are other little things you can do to really, code and decode and make sure that that person's name has as much meaning in it.
I love watching you write the notes so easily. I mean, I'm so embarrassed all the years I spent in choir, and I cannot read music.
Don't take that.
Ants on a log.
Seriously. Even with that carillon, the chimes atop UC San Diego, when I have composers write for it, at least once a year, I purposely find someone who does not traditionally write music, and I do choose them and ask them to compose something for the carillon, and they can do that either by just playing it by ear on the keyboard that they use, and then we can notate it out, or we can look at it together, and if they're going to sing it to me, there are ways. And for instance, Danny Elfman doesn't really, in a traditional sense, read or write music.
Really?
He certainly does compose,
Right.
but he carries a tape recorder with him, and he'll sing themes in, and he does get assistance from people to orchestrate. And he's got a brilliant sound. You know it's him when you hear him.
Yeah, absolutely,
But
every time.
And but he's not a note reading person. I mean, that's changed, but maybe you shouldn't change either. Because
Right.
it works. It's working for him. So there you go.
Yeah.
And Paul McCartney as well. He has someone he works with, and Paul McCartney is a brilliant performer and musician, but he doesn't truly write things out like I just did.
Right.
And why should he?
Because he doesn't need
it. And he
He's
has
got
help.
billions of dollars. He can hire someone to help him do that. I just remember,
And I'm sure the person's paid very well.
I'm sure they are. I just remember being all the music majors around me asking the accompanist, "Oh, could you please play my E in measure 7?" And I'd be like, "Could you bang out my note on the top of page 3?"
So we can hear it. Yeah.
Just, I don't know if it's a D flat or what it is. Just
Well, that is always true. But you have to be careful, because if you don't C sharp, you'll be flat.
true story.
And I think the better advice is, don't be sharp, don't be flat, just be natural. Don't you think, Miss Melanie? Yes, and I think that's what your musical motif was saying the whole time, too. Well, I have a story I'm going to read now, a story from Liam Flynn. And Liam's in high school now, can you believe it?
cannot
We've been
believe
reading
it.
his stories forever, and we're finally going to read his story tonight. Is Liam in the house? It's always so much more fun when he sits at a microphone and laughs at his own
I will step
story.
away so he can.
Thank you, Miss Melanie. Thank you for all your help tonight. You're a vision in gray and purple. Oh, good. Both of the Flynn children are here. So, yes, Liam, I'm going to read your story now. Here we go. Tonight. No, it's actually today. Take 2. Today on Planet Sweatpants, in Sweatpants Universe, the Dohai cleaning guy was just finishing the cleaning and reinstallation of the carpet, which Tony had ground a lot of food into. And of course, Raymond invited himself over to visit with Tony again because he felt like it. When Raymond arrived at Tony's, he accidentally scratched the house with the right view mirror on his new car, then yelled some funny words. When Tony saw the damage, he did not know if Raymond knew about it, so he told him, and Raymond said, "Thank you, Captain Obvious." And Tony answered with, "You're welcome, Sergeant Sarcasm." Later, they went to a large technology museum, and they ended up getting separated from each other. Raymond then called Tony on his phone, and Tony answered with, "Reporting for duty, boss." They walked around the museum for a few hours before getting lunch at Taco Sweatpants, where they each ordered a dozen items of food. After lunch, they went to Sweatpants Electronics again, where they kept farting, and Raymond kept telling Tony that it's not funny and it's rude. They ended up stinking up the whole store and making everyone evacuate. The employees then turned on all the fans to full blast and sprayed the air with odor remover. As the employees were getting rid of the awful smell, they found some rotting food hidden in some displays and in the cleaning supplies closet, which Tony had left during his last few visits, but the store workers did not know that. After Sweatpants Electronics, Tony and Raymond went over to Sweatpants Co. and fooled around with some of the items on display as they were meant for. Yeah. After walking around in the store for a while, Tony and Raymond got a snack at the food court outside before going to meet up with Alex again, but this time at Sweatpants Buy to look at more computers and electronic devices. At Sweatpants Buy, Tony was holding himself in a funny way, and then Alex asked him if he wanted to use the restroom, and Raymond gave him a funny look. The three of them ended up getting some various adapters for the computers at Sweatpants Buy before going to have dinner at Dohai again, since it was already 9 p.m. At Dohai, Tony confused an automatic flushing urinal to keep flushing, ground plenty more food into the carpet and the seat before launching some onto the ceiling and smearing some on the wall and window. By the time they left, the cleaning guy knew there was a big mess to clean up, since he recognized the sound of food splatting on the things and getting grounded to the carpet. He ended up having to somehow get a street sweeper inside to clean the carpet before power washing it. The wall and ceiling was cleaned first with some heavy-duty cleaner, which did not work, obviously. Then the cleaning guy tried sanding it clean, which helped a lot, and finished it off by sandblasting the wall and ceiling before retaining. I think they meant to say before returning. But anyway, the end. Exclamation point. Well, thank you for that story. Thank you. And, you know, we were shooting for a 45-minute show, and we did it. We did it. It was a 45-minute show. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Ether Tale Radio Theater, where we had very few bells and whistles. Well, no bells and whistles, just one pink melodica made out of mother of toilet seat. So we're going to take a little break, and I actually have a bonus interview coming up at 9 p.m. So we're going to switch to some public domain music for a while, or you could just meditate upon the 30th anniversary of the Geisel Library Chimes. Why don't you imagine it playing John Cage's famous piece entitled to be titled 4 minutes 33 seconds. And for the piece, you just sit at the instrument and you don't play for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. But let's make this performance last 13 minutes. And here we go.
Attention coaches, authors, speakers, and business owners. Please pay close attention to what I'm about to say if you want to secure massive visibility fast and generate thousands of highly qualified leads without spending a dime on advertising or marketing. The easiest way to make this happen is to appear as a guest on the world's most popular podcast. We recently came across an awesome resource that provides detailed contact information for 240 new media influencers who are looking for guests just like you. It's called the Ultimate Directory, and for a limited time, you can get the preview edition of the directory absolutely free. That's right, for free. It's time for you to get the visibility you and your business deserve and connect with the world's leading icons of influence who can make you famous with the push of a button. Get your free preview edition of the Ultimate Directory right now at www.myultimatedirectory.com. That's myultimatedirectory.com.
You were born to do one amazing thing, but most people spend a lifetime trying to identify what it is. If you're in a job you don't like or are unemployed, if you're in a state of transition or just can't shake that nagging feeling that you were meant and made to do something extraordinary, then the Reinvention Workshop is exactly what you need. Led by award-winning self-help author Steve Olsher, the Reinvention Workshop will forever change your life. The Reinvention Workshop takes you step by step through Steve's proven formula that has helped so many people get on the right path and clear about what they were born to do. Take the first step to realizing the life you deserve and desire by visiting thereinventionworkshop.com today. No more delays, no more denial. Reconnect with your true self. Learn to live with purpose and conviction and become who you were born to be. The world is waiting for you. What are you waiting for? Log on to thereinventionworkshop.com today. That's thereinventionworkshop.com.
To
much to do, not enough time to get it done? Call on the experts at Another 8 Hours for your business support needs. By partnering with Another 8 Hours, we allow you to focus on the more important matters, like being in front of your clients, doing what you do best, rather than being stuck at a desk poring over paperwork, rummaging through emails, returning phone calls, and struggling to get everything done by yourself. Meanwhile, your family and social life are going down the drain. Go to another8hours.com or call 8 more hours. That's 866-734-6877.